There's a saying that the first steps of any undertaking are the most difficult. I don't know if that really applies to the start of the annual elbow run, but it does seem to always be the one that takes the most time. On a warm Saturday in July 2019, 10 sailors and 7 boats gathered once again at Tufts Bay on the edge of the prairie village of Elbow, Saskatchewan. They came by land and by water, and by mid-afternoon all were heading west to begin another week of sailing on Lake Diefenbaker and camping on its shores. Our friend Ken, who has sailed on 2 elbow runs, came to see us off. He interviewed the sailors and started with this question.
So tell me, what keeps bringing you back to the elbow run?
Well, it's just a fun time, good camaraderie, and lots of fun. Good experience, lots of camping.
Made some friendships while we were down here, and just the idea of going down this lake, it seems never ending. I know some of them found the end, I haven't, and again probably this time won't, but it's just a lot of fun. The camping, sitting around the campfire, having a couple of rum.
Look at this place. It's so vast, so beautiful. It changes as you go down the lake. You know, you do so much preparation and all these things before you go, and then you get here. And it's just this wonderful feeling that flushes through you.
Yeah.
It's very nice. As soon as you get out there, everything changes.
Oh, yeah.
No phone, no time, no.
Well, Rod and I got in touch probably 2 years ago, and I never knew this was even a thing. And when he invited us to come along, we came, and last year was good, and this year is going to be even better.
It's the camaraderie, and I hear it over and over from the guys that every year when we're done, you ask them, okay, what did you like about it? And that's one of the things that keeps coming back, you know. Sitting around the campfire with Rick's fire going there, and it's always good times. And you never know what's going to happen. The weather is completely, you're at the mercy of the weather.
Yeah.
That's always a good reminder that, especially in this society, we aren't in charge. We are not in charge. And this year, especially as people are gaining some awareness of climate crisis. A week before, you know, even last night, I mean, the guys are telling me how they got here, and some of them have gone through some major winds just to get here last night. We don't know what we'll be up to the next week. We hope it'll be good, but who knows?
Winds were light to start. Rick tried out his new Code Zero sail, while Russell and I flew my new asymmetrical spinnaker. Of course, Brent flew his spinnaker, and soon he was leading the pack.
Rod, tell me just a brief history of the elbow run.
Well, we started, this will be number 7. Daryl and I come the first time, whatever year that was, and had so much fun. It was Daryl's idea. He said, hey, we should go camping on the lake. And I said, well, yeah, okay, that sounds like a good idea. So the first time out the first year we did 3 days and 2 nights. The next year we did 4 days and 3 nights with just the 2 of us. And then the next year we had more guys join, and then more guys join.
The wind strengthened a bit and continued long enough to enable us to make it to a little cove across from Hitchcock's hideout. While everyone gathers in the cove, let's hear some more of Ken's interviews.
What are you looking forward to this trip?
It's hard to say because, like, I really love sailing when I'm sailing, right? And I love the camp shore experience, you know, cooking and the camaraderie and the campfire. I love breakfast. So
interesting with different boats.
Spending some time with my dad and getting to check out the lake, and yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Fair winds.
Fair winds.
Fair winds and good conversation.
That's right.
Try out my new sail. See a bunch of new people. Looks like it'll be a good time.
Well, I just hope we all are safe and I mean, we always say we want to make it to Sask Landing, and of course last year the guys made it and back. It'd be nice if we do that, but it's not, you know, it's not a race, it's the event. And the event is whatever it ends up being, and whatever it is, it'll be great.
Day 2 began with no wind. Some of us did a bit of paddling to pass the morning and to keep our boats headed in the general direction of west. Sometime after noon, air currents began to form. The bigger sails were launched, including Dave's asymmetrical spinnaker on his McGregor 26X. It was the first time flying it since he has had the boat, and it looked great.
Night 2. Just gathering for the evening. Just across from Rusty's Coulee and across from Cow Patty.
I swam quietly up to Daryl's boat and grabbed him by the arm. I made sure he couldn't hit me.
Late in the afternoon we came together and picked a lovely sandy beach as our campsite for the night. It was the first place that Daryl and I had chosen during our second Elbow run. My crewmate, Russell, took advantage and went for a swim with the pelicans.
Day 3. Everybody's had breakfast. Getting on the way. Winds have just picked up. It was pretty calm for the first hour or so. We're missing one boat. I think he's ahead a little ways. Anyway, another great day.
I should take a moment to tell you about my crewmate, Russell. He and I are cousins. Russell did the 2-day drive from Kelowna, British Columbia to join me for the run. It was his first experience sailing, and I can tell you he's a natural. Literally within minutes of leaving Tufts Bay the first day, I handed him the tiller while I launched the spinnaker. He handled it like a pro. We had a great week together, and I'm hoping he'll be back for the Elbow Run 2020. After the slow start, we made good time on day 3. Late in the afternoon, Dave and Chad scouted ahead and found us a sandy beach for the night. In the evening, we sat around another of Rick's great campfires. Isn't this a beautiful view of a boat in the sunrise? Don't let it fool you. There's a story. Take note of where Dave's McGregor is pulled up on the beach in this shot. Overnight, the wind picked up and the McGregor slipped away from the beach, waking Dave and Chad up when they realized they were moving. After some tense moments, they were able to get another anchor out, and this is where they were as the sun came up. On day 4, Chad and Dave said goodbye and headed back to look after prior commitments. We were sad to leave them behind, but Dave got some more great drone shots of us as we pulled back onto the lake and continued on our way towards Saskatchewan landing. The drone's vantage high above provides some stunning views of the surrounding river hills and the morning sun reflecting off the lake. Thank you, Dave, for sharing your drone piloting skills with us so that we can enjoy our lake from this dramatic viewpoint. Once again, the morning started with light winds. Prairie Lake Regional Park was soon behind us, and we focused our attention on getting as far as we could on day 4. There is something that has always interested me about this lake. Some landmarks are clear, and it is easy to determine where on the lake one is. At other times, it is as if one were sailing on a lake for the first time and nothing seems familiar. Distances are deceptive. Remember that this lake is really a reservoir formed from damming up the South Saskatchewan River, so it is much longer than it is wide. Still, most sections are wide enough that it is very easy to miss a familiar landmark on the far side. By mid-afternoon, those of us in the front of the pack could see electrical transmission lines crossing the lake. We knew we must be approaching our final destination, Saskatchewan Landing. Shortly after, we pulled into a small bay beside the marina. It was a special occasion for Daryl and me. We'd been talking about making it to Saskatchewan Landing for 7 years, and we finally made it. We were quite relieved to find the one boat that had gone ahead of us. Avery and Matt had arrived half an hour before we did. We sat at the marina store and waited for the last 2 boats to arrive, and Avery treated us to some of his guitar stylings. The forecast for the next day was questionable. Avery and Matt decided to discontinue their elbow run, but they wanted to send us on our way with a song that they had chosen for the occasion.
What do you do with a drunken sailor? What do you do with a drunken sailor? What do you do with a drunken sailor early in the morning? Way up she rises, way up she rises, way up she rises early in the morning. Put him in the bed with the captain's daughter, put him in the bed with the captain's daughter, put him in the bed with the captain's daughter early in the morning. Way up she rises, way up she rises, way up she rises early in the morning. Put him in the longboat till he's so.
With that rendition of The Drunken Sailor ringing in our ears, we made our way out of the marina and sailed for an hour to a beach that Brent and Rick had stayed on last year. Day 5 began as expected with a heavily overcast sky. Russell and I pulled onto the lake ahead of the others, and soon we were well out in front with a good breeze. The weather conditions demanded a careful eye to the sky. Thunderclouds were all around us, but by counting time between flashes and thunder, we determined there was at least 10 or more miles between us and the lightning strikes, and we continued. At midpoint in the morning, we spotted something out of the ordinary ahead of us. It was a mule deer swimming across the lake. My son and I had witnessed a similar scene during the Elbow Run in 2016. Russell and I followed the doe until it scrambled onto shore and bounded quickly off, no doubt wondering what it had encountered during its lake crossing. We were still making good time when we passed Beaver Flat. Better yet, we had sailed through the rain clouds and the sun came out. Sailing in the sunshine is always so much more pleasant, and we enjoyed the change. Because the lake is really just a flooded river, it takes many turns. The resulting wind swings require frequent alterations in sail trim for sailors. With the wind changing to our stern, we once again deployed the asymmetrical spinnaker. Throughout the day I scanned for a landmark that Daryl and I had first encountered in 2014. At that time it was a very large column of clay separated from the adjoining hill by water erosion. We dubbed it the Tower. When we visited it again in 2017, it had eroded down to a sliver of what it had once been 3 years earlier. I finally spotted it in the distance. It was now not much more than a dimple of dirt, barely above the water. After a long day of sailing, we pulled back into the bay where we had camped 2 nights earlier. Rainbow blessed us as we set up camp for the night.
This morning we're shooting for Hitchcock Bay. It's quite a jaunt. Let's see how well we do. Winds are favorable. Everybody's chugging along real well.
Well, as Rick indicated, on day 6, we were hopeful that we could make it back to our first campsite across from Hitchcock's hideaway. With a strong wind, we were making good time. The Elbow Run has taught me one important lesson. While we may make plans to suit us, the weather often overrides those plans. Our optimism in the morning took a turn as the day proceeded. As often happens during the run, we were spread out. Rick came alongside a sandbar that I never saw until I watched his video clips. The sandbar was a resting place for pelicans and cormorants and other fishing birds. As he approached, they lifted off and flew across the lake to the side that Russell and I were sailing on. It seemed like a never-ending stream of birds. These are only some of Russell's telephoto shots. The rest are too shaky to even try to stabilize. Murray was ahead of the group. Darrell set the pace that day for the rest of us as the wind steadily gained in strength. By midday we could see Rusty's marina in the distance. Soon after that we could see Murray's boat on the beach that we had named Cowpaddy Cove during the 2015 Elbow Run. Darrell and I were on the far side of the lake, and so we had to continue. Conditions had worsened with very strong gusty winds. I put a reef in my mainsail, and my mana immediately calmed down. Darrell still had his full mainsail up, and Russell and I could see he was struggling with the gusts. We rounded Palliser Regional Park and found him on a very sheltered beach, and we joined him. I put a second reef in the mainsail and a reef in the mizzen. Before we had come up with a strategy, Darrell was off again and we followed. This time we didn't go far. Darrell was once again in a somewhat sheltered cove. We quickly discovered it was very shallow. Darrell was able to motor out of the cove and set out again, leaving Russell and me deciding how best to proceed. Soon Darrell appeared on the beach, walking. Through a combined effort, we broke free and proceeded to a cove near the Riverhurst ferry landing, where Darrell had decided he'd had enough sailing for the day. Their boats pulled onto shore. The wind was still whistling in the cove, but there was no waves. We got out lawn chairs and beers and waited. From time to time we climbed the hill to get phone reception and to check the lake for the other boats. Finally, at mid-afternoon, we were able to exchange text messages and learned that Rick and Brent had joined Murray at Cowpaddy Cove. They were enjoying one of Rick's campfires. We all agreed to stay put and hope for an improvement in weather in the morning. Friday morning dawned with no change in the weather. We had breakfast, and we kept climbing the hill to check conditions. About 9 o'clock, Darrell spotted sails coming around the point at Palliser Regional Park. The windriders were sailing with reefed mainsails and furled jibs. They steadily approached the Riverhurst ferry. The ferry is pulled across the lake on twin underwater cables. It is essential to stay clear of the ferry when it is crossing so as to not get caught on the cables. It makes its crossing every half hour. The ferry left its slip as Brent and Rick approached. Brent made it across the ferry's path without difficulty, From the shore, we also saw Rick Cross, although with much less room. The ferry operator must have seen Murray approaching. From shore, we could not understand why he would not have waited a few minutes to let him go by. Tacking the windrider without the jib and in those kind of conditions is not easily done. With the ferry not giving way, Murray was forced to change his course and cross behind it. From shore, it was nail-biter time until we were certain that Murray was safely passed. With the windriders now ahead of us, we quickly prepared to follow them. Conditions were rather gnarly when we pulled out of our sheltered cove. The ferry was once again preparing to cross, and we were too focused on our safety to take any video shots. Bird Island was one familiar landmark we passed on our way. I made a mental note to come back and spend more time checking it out. Even with a double reef main and a reef in the mizzen on the Mana, we made good time. We stayed on the south side of the lake and soon were past Hitchcock's hideaway. Russell and I were the last boat to reach Elbow. We went straight to the marina while the other boats pulled out at Tufts Bay. Another eventful Elbow run had come to a close.
And last, any words of advice for sailors who might join us in the coming years?
Just a lot of fun. I would recommend this to everyone. Anyone that loves to sail. Doesn't matter what you have. As you can see, I used to be in a windrider. Now we're taking this big one out. We'll see how that works. But I think it's nice. It's opened up to everybody. And I think it's just going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, come. Just come join. It's a good time. Good folks. Lots of fun.